Hi there, and welcome to the Somewhere Between Here and Healing podcast. I'm Viv, your host and fellow traveler on this journey of navigating life after growing up with a narcissistic parent. Together, we'll explore the messy, the funny, and the downright unbelievable stories of family, life, and self discovery. Please let it be known I am not a therapist nor claim to be an expert in any way. I am simply someone who's been through it, still figuring things out, and I'm here to share my story with you. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's get this thing started. Hey there, and welcome back to the podcast. Y'all, it's been a week, let me tell you. I had an outline all typed up for today's episode. Once again, I had everything planned and every point mapped out. I honestly figured I would go through my first few episodes of the podcast and touch on some of the narcissism basics, like 101 style. But life has a funny way of writing its own story, doesn't it? Unexpected things happen, and they happen often, right? I mean, like a lot. And when they do, they can have the power to change everything in the blink of an eye. This, or something like this, just happened to me recently. What I thought would be one thing turned into something entirely different. And now here I am recording a podcast that honestly I didn't expect to be making. Vague, I know. And you know what's weird? I don't even think I have a word or proper explanation for what happened and is happening. I can only speak to my reaction, I suppose, about it all, how it made me feel in the moment and afterwards. And ultimately, that made me think I bet I am not the only one going through something like this or who has gone through something like this. Also, I do want to just take a quick moment before I get into it, just to let you know if you're hearing some noise in the background, which hopefully you don't. It's just the wind. It's wildly windy out here today. And in fact, it's been windy here so often lately. I swear, I never remember back to back windy, gusty days like this, no matter what season it has been. But moving on, I want you to make your own connection to this event that I'm going to speak about, these types of thoughts and feelings, or whatever I guess we're going to call it. Let it be known that for me, in this moment, I'm speaking to a situation or situations here that involved narcissism and trauma. So back to my recent moment. It was one of those things where when it happened, I initially felt blindsided. And yet, in some strange way, I wasn't entirely surprised it was happening. Does that make any sense? It was like I knew deep down that this sort of thing, episode, if you want to call it, was waiting for me around the corner or waiting for the other shoe to drop, something like that. And when that moment came, honestly, it knocked me off my feet. I don't want to get into any of the messy, specific details of what happened here, but rather touch base on this situation in a general sense and how it made me feel again during and afterwards. If I do need to clarify at the end, I will, but hopefully the words will come out of my mouth okay. And I'm hoping that y'all can relate in your own way and in your own life. We'll see what happens. No direction here, just talking. Okay, so what happened was a bit of a whirlwind event for me. Let's call it conversation for the purposes of this episode, a conversation. And in that conversation, I found myself immediately drowning in a wave of emotions: sadness, anger, disbelief, and a little bit of fear, all wrapped up into one messy package. It was so overwhelming. I had moments I couldn't even catch my breath. This conversation lasted for about an hour or two, but it stayed with me obviously much longer. It lingered, stretching out over hours and days afterwards, leaving me unable to really make sense of what happened. I kept replaying everything in my head. What if the signs were always there for this type of situation to happen? What if I should have seen something like this coming? What if it was or is obvious to everyone else except me? The kind of questions that loop and loop and never really lead to any answers. The thing is, this isn't the first time something like this has happened to me. That thought of, my gosh, what could I have done to see this happening, to prepare myself, to potentially change the course of things, to handle it differently? What if I could have prevented it altogether? Somewhere in me, I think I knew. At least I should have known, right? I should have known. The signs were there. Have you ever experienced something like this? Something that surprised you, whether it be a conversation, an experience, a run in with another person, whatever the flavor, but something that shook you, left you reeling, and suddenly you find yourself flooded with all these old thoughts, memories, other conversation, or even doubts that make you look at it all so differently. As I mentioned a little prior to this sensation, thought process, it has happened to me before. In fact, I can recall the first time it happened to me in a narcissistic situation. Obviously, life, typically speaking, can have many, many of these types of moments. Many. But I'm speaking today about encounters or experiences with a narcissistic or toxic person. At the time of my first encounter, I didn't know what I know now. And it's been a rather long time since that first, what could I have done different, or the signs were there moment. I have spent years with it, trying to understand it, trying to heal from it, and trying to never have something like that happen again, as best I could anyway. And I think a lot of us go through this in life, that questioning, those moments of, oh my gosh, I should have seen this coming, especially if we spent time healing from something that may be similar in nature, whether it's trauma, loss, sadness, toxicity, or just deep emotional scars. You think you've moved past it, that you've worked through it. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, a moment, a word, a situation can bring it all rushing back. Like a flood of old feelings that you thought were gone, tucked away, but they were never really gone at all. That's what happened to me the night of this quote conversation. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting it at all, to be honest. But as it was unfolding, it didn't feel entirely unfamiliar. I felt a deep, almost like a physical fury, a kind of anger mixed with a deep sadness and a sense of betrayal. And honestly, just some pure disbelief. It's almost as if my body recognized something before my mind processed it. Like the emotions were too big to be ignored, a gut punch, if you will. A I cannot believe this is happening feeling, but this time with someone or something else. Here's the thing, it's not like I hadn't done the work. It's not like I hadn't been healing or trying to. But I guess it's like I always say, healing doesn't work in straight lines. There are so many twists and turns, ups and downs, forwards and backwards, and things can resurface in ways that make you feel like you've never healed at all. And that's tough, right? I genuinely thought I was at a place in my life, my healing, my growth, where something like that would never happen again. Have you ever thought you were fine, a relationship was fine, perhaps you were healing or, quote, over it, only for something to hit you sideways and remind you of all the old pain you thought you'd put to rest? What does that feel like for you? Those moments can awaken old thoughts and memories, even fears. They can bring up flashbacks, feelings of helplessness, anxiety, even nightmares. It's as if everything you've been running from or trying to outrun comes rushing back into your chest, taking your breath away. It can be real in a way that feels almost physical, a sensation that creeps up on you, like you can touch the past, feel it, taste it all over again. And then those thoughts. You start to question yourself, your choices, your memories, even. You second guess everything, even those times you were so sure about. And the worst part is that dang guilt that follows, guilt for not knowing, for not perhaps acting sooner, for trusting what seemed too good to be true. It's this vicious cycle of doubt that makes it sometimes almost impossible to break free from. Now, after all that rambling I just did, and it was a bit of a ramble, so my apologies. My questions are: does it ever feel like that for anyone else? For you? Like the past can come back and knock you sideways? And when that does happen, how do you handle it? Do you get caught up in the what ifs or do you push them away? I suppose it depends on the person and the situation, doesn't it? How we handle these types of things, what part of the journey we are on, whether this is a new sensation or if you experienced a repeated one. One thing I've learned is these experiences, at one point I thought that they did, but they don't make us weak. I thought that once. But they're reminders that we're still human. That no matter how far we've come or where we are at in life, life can still throw us curveballs. It's okay to feel knocked down. It's okay to feel like you're back at the start sometimes. But remember, you do not have to stay there. Sometimes those old feelings will resurface unexpectedly for me without a trigger event. And I find myself questioning everything once more, reliving the moments I thought were gone. You may have this happen to you as well. But those are also signs that we're still growing, still moving, still processing. We have to accept that sometimes we can be caught off guard, and that's okay too. It's okay to have moments when the memories, the feelings, the nightmares are real again. They are real because they were real when they happened. They are real when they are happening, and they are a part of our stories. They don't define who we are now or even in those moments. And I have to remind myself I am still moving forward, even on days when it feels like the past is catching up to me in ways I could have never thought. So, if you've been through something like this, whether for the first time or if you felt that sudden sharp reminder of past pain or trauma, know that you're never alone. Your journey, your healing, your story, it doesn't look like anyone else's. And it's okay to feel all of it. It's okay to let it knock you down because don't forget, you can always get back up again. So, how do you move through these moments? How do you face old emotions when they come rushing back? And what does it feel like when those old triggers bring everything to the surface? I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Hit me up on social media or email me anytime at vivvance@gmail.com. As always, thank you for joining me today. It's never easy to open up about these raw moments, and I realize this episode was a bit of a jumbled, wild ride that probably didn't make a lot of sense in moments, but I appreciate you, and I appreciate having a space where I can let my thoughts, however chaotic they may be, out. I really appreciate you all listening and being here. I strongly believe that by talking about these sort of confusing thoughts and feelings, that we create a space for ourselves and for others to relate, understand, and hopefully heal. Remember, you don't have to have it all figured out, and you're allowed to feel all of it, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Until next time, take care of yourself and don't forget, healing doesn't mean being perfect, it just means continuing to show up. Viv. Thank you for listening and spending time with me today. I appreciate you all so much. If you haven't already, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and follow me on social media. Your support means the world. Plus, it really helps the podcast grow and reach more people like us. And don't forget, I'd love to hear from you. Send me your questions, share your story, or just drop by to say hello at vivvance@gmail.com. Until next time, remember, healing isn't linear, life can be unpredictable, but you are never alone in this journey. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.